Again, can I have your attention? I appreciate everybody showing up. By the way, the next meeting that we do for Red Move is going to be May the 5th. And Mr. DeLong, along with 4 other candidates, will be debating. And Annie, by the way, Annie Black called this morning. She's sick. And Noah Malgary, wife, had an emergency. So either they're both going to come in the next 2 months. With that in mind, Chris, are we ready to go live stream? I guess we're live streaming. It'll go all over, plus video. We get several thousand, so everybody behave themselves. On the live stream, you go to redmovenevada.com. That's redmovenevada.com. Leo, are you ready? He's in the parking lot. He'll be here.
So we have time. I was going to say we recorded all of these folks here. We're live right now, so we just wait.
All right.
So why don't you take a break and tell us? Leo?
Yeah. By the way, for candidates, we did video all of you, and it'll be on YouTube within a week. And we do get up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, including the Las Vegas people, Dean. Dean, including Las Vegas. And McConnell, the last time I criticized him, he called within half an hour. Anyway, with that in mind, we have a guest here. He's running for governor of California. Right now he's running number 2, but aggressive. He's 36 years old. Oh, 30? Eddie said 36. I guess only 30. His family ran, if you were from California, Zaki Farms. Anyway, Leo Zaki, running for California governor.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me here tonight. You know, we're seeing the destruction of America take place right before our eyes. And we are so blessed to have organizations like this one where we can come together and support patriots that are trying to help take back our country. And it's amazing that there are so many wonderful candidates that are here tonight that are fighting to save Nevada. These elections are far bigger than just whatever title that they're going for. These are people that are fighting to take back fundamental positions in our legislature to help turn America around. For too long, we have let corrupt people take over our country, and we are all witness to their failure. The corrupt Biden administration is one glaring example of what happens when we don't monitor our election process, of what happens when we get complacent with the way things are. And it's clear to me that with all of you here tonight, that we're all fed up with that. And we're here to take an action, we're here to take stand. We have a responsibility as Americans to vet our candidates. We have to learn about them, and we have to pick the right one. And when we do, we have to support them through the process of going through the election cycle. Because it is so hard nowadays with the corrupt corporate media that is shutting us out and locking us out of information. I mean, the fact that Twitter was able to take the sitting president of the United States off of the internet and squelch him should be warning enough. Now, I know Nevada has a lot of issues with education. So does California. We have to find candidates that are going to stop this CRT divisive garbage. We have to go and support the candidates that are going to stand for parental rights. They cannot be allowed to call parents domestic terrorists. It's incredible how far we've come. But we must continue to be the watchdogs of our society. We must be the watchdogs of our children, and we have to be on guard when it comes to our government, because we have to remind everybody in power that they work for us, we the people. Are all of you aware of the deep state? If I were to mention names like George Soros or Klaus Schwab, does that mean anything to you guys? There is a globalist international banking cartel that is behind all of the evil that is taking place in the world today. There is a disgusting pedophile sex trafficking ring that is taking place globally. All these people are doing this all in the quest for power and their sick, twisted fantasies. This is not a joke. This is not anything that is far-fetched. Look who just got nominated to the Supreme Court, or just got passed on to the Supreme Court. She's known for being lenient to pedophiles. This is what happens when we let our guard down. This is what happens when we elect the wrong people. 3 Republicans got her through today. Mitt Romney, Ms. Collins, and I forget the other one. Murowski, yeah. Folks, we have to be on guard. It is so important that we take back all these positions. We need to support the candidates. And I'm not alone in this fight, and I know that. It's good to see fellow patriots here. So I'd like to thank you all very much for your time. My name is Leo Zaki. I know I didn't tell you much about me, but you can go and find out about me on my website, or just come up to me and ask me. But thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the evening, and let's go. Save America.
Thank you, Leo. I guess I'm supposed to get in the spotlight. Anyway, I think this young man, Eddie, thought he was 36. He's only 30. He has a heck of a future ahead of him, even in California. We're going to get those bastards out of there. Anyway, continuing with the program, Sam Shad, I'm going to have him stand up, is with Nevada Newsmakers. He's the moderator, and then he'll be the moderator for the debate and the interviewer for the interview. With that in mind, the first candidate is Danny Tarkarian, that's running for CD2 against Mark Amadei. Sam, take it away.
Okay, I think I've got already got a mic set.
Yeah, Sam's in the middle or whatever.
Danny, long time no see.
I know. I'm seeing Sam more than I'm seeing my wife. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing Sam more than I'm seeing my wife. He's interviewed me now. This will be the 3rd time on Monday.
So this is good. You're getting the exposure you need. So first of all, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me back here again. I appreciate it. And we're going to do 15 minutes each with our 2 CD2 candidates, starting out with Danny Tarkanian, who currently sits as a Douglas County Commissioner. So first of all, why are you running? Let's start there.
Well, thank you. You know, I've heard that from a lot of people, and it was a very tough decision. You know, I'm currently sitting on the Douglas County Commission. I really enjoyed my work there. I really enjoy when I have people come up to me afterwards and they say, thank you for standing up with me, being the voice that I didn't have. In fact, that happened today, just from my county commission meeting here today. I had to vote against the staff and the planning commission recommendation because I had to be the voice for 3 small business owners that were going to get the short end of the stick. So I've enjoyed my work there, but you know, as with so many of you, we've watched what's going on around our country, and we say, this is absolutely crazy. Why would anybody allow this to happen? Now, you need to understand, Congressional District 2 is the only safe Republican seat in all of Nevada. It's a very conservative seat. It's a seat that loves the America First policies. So I moved up here with my family, and I started watching the votes that are being taken by the current representative in CD2. You know, there's 2 million illegal immigrants came across the country illegally last year. That's more than many states. 7,000 came across the country every day last month. That's more than Carson City, Lyon County, Elko County, and Douglas County combined. And the current representative of Congressional District 2, Mark Amadei, he's voted repeatedly to grant amnesty to illegal immigrants. Now, you know, with that floodgate opened, they anticipate, now listen to this, they anticipate 100,000 people coming across the border illegally every week now. And I look back and I say, why would anybody vote for that? And then, you know, I understand that the inflation is hurting everybody. And there's different reasons for the inflation. But one of the big reasons is our out-of-control spending and the debt that we're running up in Washington, D.C. So the tipping point for me in getting in this race was when Mark Amadei was one of only 38 Republican congressmen who voted for the latest $1.5 trillion omnibus bill. And he came to Douglas County and he spoke at a St. Patrick's Day dinner, and they said to him, Mark, why would you vote for that bill? And he said, look, the bill was going to pass anyways, so at least I was honest and I voted for it. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what everybody's sick of in politics, is just go along, get along, and don't vote your conscience. You know, that bill had $10 billion in earmarks, $10 billion. $2.4 billion was allocated to promote gender equity internationally. I don't even know what that means or how they're going to do it, but that $2.4 billion was done that way. That bill had such a bad provision in it with the Second Amendment that the Gun Owners of America called 39 congressmen who voted for it, including Mark Amadei, a traitor. So I was sitting there with my wife, and my wife had been encouraging me to run over the past couple months, and I kept backing off, saying, no, it's just not the time yet. And I finally decided, I said, hey, can we handle 2 more years of this? I mean, I could have waited 2 years until my term expired, but do we want somebody representing us in Congressional District 2 who's voting to give citizenship to illegal immigrants, that voted to give $600 million a year to Planned Parenthood? $600 million, and it's not federal money, it's your taxpayer money, $600 million. You know, Mark Amadei was the first GOP congressman to join the Democrats and support President Trump's first impeachment inquiry. He blamed Trump for January 6th. So, you know, I could have sat back 2 years, allowed this to continue, or I just thought that our country was in such a dangerous position right now that somebody had to step up who could beat him, who has the conservative values, but most importantly, has what the people in Douglas County have said about me, that I have the courage to stand up for them and fight for them and be their voice when nobody else did. So I got in the race on Friday, the last day of voting. I'm going to tell you, I was shaken going in there doing so. My wife was all excited. I've never been nervous of any challenge in my life, but I was in this one.
Let me ask you this. You brought up immigration as one of the topics here. How do you feel about the Ukrainians who have left their country because of the war, and they're coming to Mexico and coming across the border to the United States through a cavalry church that is organizing this? Are you okay with that? Are you uncomfortable with that? How do you feel?
I'm okay with any legal immigration. I'm okay. Look, my grandmother escaped the Armenian genocide in 1917. She watched her whole family beheaded by the Turkish army. She hid in the basement of a home of a Turkish family, and she escaped and came to to America. But she came legally in the right way. And if the Ukrainians are coming here legally, then yes, I'm all for them. I think we should welcome them, and I think everybody in this room feels that way. It's when you break the law and then you reward people for breaking the laws. You know, only in Washington, D.C., only in the swamp, do you see people that pass laws that don't work, then don't enforce them, and then go out and reward people for breaking them.
Let me ask you this. People have been talking about immigration reform since President Reagan signed the last bill in 1986. How do you feel about that? And would you support any efforts at immigration reform, whether comprehensive or otherwise?
Well, I absolutely think we need immigration reform, and that's one of the big problems we have here in our country. Neither side, and I'm talking about Republicans or Democrats, the Mark Amadei Republicans or the Democrats, they don't want to see a solution to it. They'd rather allow people to come across illegally, not enforce the laws, and then reward them with citizenship. Yes, we do. There are workers that are needed here in the United States that I think there should be programs put in place where they can come across the border legally, work, and go back across the border and come back when they're needed, or if they want to apply for legal residency, they could do so. We could find ways to make it work if we wanted to, but they don't want to do it because it's a political hot button. It's a way that they can win votes and get reelected again, and that's what's wrong with our political system. That's what's wrong with Washington, D.C.
Obviously, Mark Amadei has been in Congress long enough to get some seniority. Yeah. He is likely, if this red wave is accurate, to get a committee chairmanship on an influential committee that could benefit Nevada. Yeah. If you were elected to Congress, then you would be number 435 in the pecking order. Do you have concerns that that might in the end hurt Nevada?
I have concerns that would be a question to me, and more importantly, that would be Mark Amadei's reason to be reelected. So we're supposed to reelect Mark Amadei because he's been in Congress the longest, that he's voted for the most pork projects, and we're taking care of certain Nevadans here. I mean, that's what made the Republican Party people leave in waves when we were voting for people because of seniority, because they were bringing in more pork. The Republican Party today wants people to stand up and show some courage and show some backbone and stand up and fight for what the conservative values mean and what they will do. Mark Amadei has not done that in 12 years, and just because he's been in there 12 years doesn't mean, hey, now we should continue to keep him in there because he's too powerful. I will tell you this also. Mark Amadei is in a safe Republican seat. And in a safe Republican seat means he hasn't had a tough reelection. The most money ever spent against him in a primary has been $45,000 by Sharon Angle. The most money spent in a general election is $450,000 last year. I had $6 million spent against me in 2016 when I lost by 1% to Sharon Angle. So what does Mark Amadei do in a safe seat? He takes $170,000 from incumbent Republicans so that he can get reelected, and he only gives $140,000 back to candidates running for Congress, and this is over his 12 years. $140,000 over his 12 years. That's why he hasn't moved up in 11 years in the Republican Party. Now, if I get elected, I'm going to raise some money. I'm going to help other Republicans get elected. They're going to say, hey, Danny took care of me. I'm going to help vote him on a committee. I'm going to move up much faster than Mark Amadei has in 12 years.
Do you believe that politics is the art of compromise?
It is the art of compromise and persuasion. The compromise isn't like what Mark Amadei has said about the $1.5 trillion budget, where he says, hey, I brought back some of this pork project here, so I'm going to ignore all the horrible things that was in there. Compromise has to be that you get the better part of the bargain, that you're getting more of what you want than what you're giving up. And the way you get that is through persuasion. Politics is the art of compromise through persuasion.
As I mentioned to you, and folks, you'll be more than welcome to go to our website, NevadaNewsMakers.com, and see a full half-an-hour interview with Danny. I brought this up during the interview, that Barbara Vukanovich, who was certainly a very conservative person, told me that she had voted for bills that on the surface looked against her political philosophy, but that there were so many good things for Nevada in those bills that she felt she had to vote for them. How would you feel about that?
Well, I agree. First of all, I love Barbara Vukanovich. She was one of my idols growing up. She was very, very close friends of my family. And again, it's exactly what I said. If that bill contains more provisions that are really beneficial to you, and you got to hold your nose on, excuse me, on one or two things to get across what you really want, that would be great. But let's talk about that $1.5 trillion budget, okay, that Mark Amodei just voted for. There was $10 billion in earmarks. You know how much Nevada got? You know how much Mark Amodei brought back for Nevada? 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1%. And he thought that was worth it. How about the provision in it in the Second Amendment that infuriated gun owners of America so badly that they called Mark Amodei a traitor? How about the fact the bill gives $600 million to Planned Parenthood of your taxpayer money? I mean, are you telling me 1/10 of 1% of the earmarks is worth all of those things?
Let me ask you about the number one topic I'm sure you're hearing on the campaign trail as well, which is inflation. And what things would you recommend to the Republican Party in Congress to curb inflation?
Look, there's several things that are causing inflation right now, not the least of which is President Biden's horrible move to restrict the United States from being energy independent that they were when President Trump was in office. But the one constant that causes inflation is government spending and the debt that's being increased. Now, look, we all feel bad now. There's $30 trillion. I want you guys to let that sink in. $30 trillion we have in debt right now. $14 trillion of that has been since Mark Amodei's been in office. Now, that $30 trillion is going to grow exponentially when interest rates go up, which they are now. And when you have a debt that's owed like that, and you have government spending that's out of control, like this $1.5 trillion, you see an increase in inflation, and everybody's paying the price. It always feels good to get something immediately, something that you say, hey, look, I brought back this money for Nevada, and it feels great. But how about the fact that you're paying so much more for gas, for food, for electricity? That's the cause of out-of-control spending.
You said earlier that Mark Amodei has been ineffective and holds no real leadership position. So how are you able to blame him for the spending in Congress if he's only one
I blame
vote?
him for his votes. If he had some courage and he stood up and he said, hey, this $1.5 trillion bill is not worth it. It's not worth what's the good part in it, then I'm going to stand up and vote against it like 120 other Republicans did. Then I'd say, hey, yeah, you know what, Mark, at least you're showing some honesty and some courage by it. But when you go along and you vote for it because you said it was going to pass anyways, yeah, I blame him for that.
Do you feel that, when you're going to be debating on Nevada Newsmakers here in the next week, so we're very excited to have
Monday.
that debate. Do you feel that the Republican Party bears responsibility for a good portion of this debt as much as the Democrats do? Because a lot of this debt was incurred during the Trump administration as well as the Biden administration. It wasn't just one party that boosted the debt by so much, and because of COVID. Look,
under Trump, at least, we had the greatest economy since, 60 years. And if you start counting the increase in the wage increase along with the unemployment rate, and the increase in gross domestic product, you say, wow, that's really wonderful. So yeah, some of his expenditures, like the tax break, it really helped the economy out. But it is the Republicans' fault too. And George W. Bush, he increased the debt greatly when he was in office. And yes, we need to have Republicans that have some fiscal responsibility, some courage to stand up and say, hey, we're not going to kick this down the road. We're not going to make the poor people suffer the most because inflation goes up and they have to pay for those essential needs, or that we're going to kick this down the table to our kids and our grandkids. Yes, it's the Republicans' fault too, and it's more the Republicans' fault because we're the party of fiscal responsibility. The Democrats, the party of handouts.
One last topic I think we got time for here. How do you feel about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what should the United States be doing if it's not doing enough right now?
I think it's one of the worst things that's happened in my lifetime. I never in my world did I think that a superpower, now we're not talking about ISIS or some crazy terrorist group out there. We have a superpower that's slaughtering children. I mean, buildings that say there's children in there, they're slaughtering them. Or that you see, as they just reported, a Russian leader telling his soldiers, kill everyone, kill all the civilians. When in our lifetime have we seen that? It's horrible what's happening. What should we do? We need to support the Ukraine with every kind of military weapons they can. I'm not in favor of putting American troops on the ground, but we certainly can provide them with the military weapons, and we should be providing them with aircraft, which they're not doing right now.
What about a no-fly zone?
I would absolutely go forward with the no-fly zone. No, I know President Biden saying, oh, it could cause World War III and so forth. But look, we supported
Sam
the
didn't
Afghanistan
want
when the Russians went in there. We gave them all kinds of military equipment. It didn't start World War III. In fact, it ended up allowing the Afghanistans to run Russia out of there. Why can't we do the same for the Ukraine now?
Well, I think the difference is that Russia was not directly involved in that conflict with the United States. It was a proxy war. And so
Which conflict?
In the Afghanistan
Okay,
conflict.
so again, we're not directly involved in Ukraine if we give them weapons. We gave them all kinds
Oh,
of
no,
weapons
I'm not
in
disagreeing, but
Afghanistan.
I'm just
Sam,
saying.
It's a good discussion, but we need to cut it off.
Okay, we're at 14:56. So, Danny, thank you very much, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
By the way, before I forget, all the candidates that brought literature on the tables, go talk to them afterwards. I'm sure they'll be glad to talk to you and hand out their literature. With that in mind, the next candidate, where's Joel? Is Joel Beck. He's also running against Amadei. Joel lives up in State Line. And you guys will be on for 15 minutes.
How are you, Joe? Nice to meet you.
You did a good job. Mark pissed me off.
All right, so we are pleased to welcome to the microphone Joel Beck, also running in CD2 against Mark Amadei. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you, Sam.
You live up in Tahoe, correct?
Yes, I live at State Line off Kingsbury.
I was not familiar with you before I started looking at your website today, so would you care to share with people who you are, what you've done, and why you think you should win the race in CD2?
Okay. Hi, I'm Joel Beck from State Line. I've been living in CD2 for 20 years, so I'm no newcomer to the area. I'm retired Air Force. I flew C-5s, the world's largest aircraft in Desert Storm. And looking at all of the candidates that we have, there's 5 actually running for CD2. I felt that I was probably most qualified to actually run for this position. So that's the reason why I'm running.
Okay, taking things from your website, one of the things that you're very concerned about is voting rights and what happened during previous elections. You want to share some of the research you did and the results that you came up with that you put on your website?
Are you talking about for the previous election?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of, I'm kind of a tech guy, obviously, being a pilot. I do a lot of analytical stuff. I'm also an aviation engineer. So I looked at all the data that I received from Google, as well as my own analytics that I put on the website, and I saw that something didn't smell right.
For example?
For example, there's like a conversion ratio. When somebody comes to a website to buy a pair of sneakers or something like that, you get so many hits per sale. So if you're going to buy widgets, you're going to get 100 hits before you can sell one widget. And then when you're looking for a candidate, typically, if you're happy with the candidates that's running in office, you're not looking at other replacements. It's like if you're happy with your car, you're not spending a lot of time in the car showroom. So that gave me some indication that people weren't happy with this candidate. So I kind of echo what Danny was saying. He's obviously visited my website himself, because I'm sure he's seen that I've been echoing the same things that he said about the current occupant of CD2. So anyhow, it's that analytical
Okay,
stuff.
all right, so you just confused me a little. So are you saying that Mark Amadei was not legitimately elected to CD2?
No, I'm not saying that Mark Amadei is not legitimately elected. I'm saying that there's something wrong with what's going on. Based upon my analysis, I took that analysis, I reached out to some people who are more knowledgeable about this than myself. For example, Bev Harris, you may have heard of her. She's written a book about black box voting. She put me in touch with Audit USA, and they are the people who told me exactly what had happened in that race. So I'm leaning on their experience in that regard.
All right, so basically you're saying that something illegal occurred in that election process.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Well, I just want you to say it. So.
Yeah, I think that there was something weird with that election.
So did you approach the district attorney? Did you approach the Secretary of State? Who did
Well, if you look at the
approach?
NRSs in the state of Nevada, if you have a question with how the election went down, you have to take those same ballots and put them through the same machines. So being a computer guy as I am, if there is a modem attached to those machines and they got an algorithm in there to put out a certain result, garbage in, garbage out, you're going to get the same result as you got before. So that the NRS protects any kind of voter fraud that there is in the state.
All right. You know that the Secretary of State says that there was no fraud in this last election, with the exception of the one person that was busted for it.
Well, if Helen Keller was still alive, I think that she would understand that there's massive election fraud in America right now.
But you feel there's massive election fraud in Nevada as well?
Yes.
Which races in particular would you feel needed to be reversed from this last election cycle because of illegal votes? Was there any particular race that you can?
No, I'm just going based on from my own experience. That's what I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking about every race in the state of Nevada.
Okay, but you're talking about massive fraud in the state.
No, I mean there's
guess
massive fraud in the state. There's massive fraud across the country.
Okay, but I'm just trying to get to the point of where you give me evidence that somebody that is legally in charge can take and then turn over this election. I mean, that's the problem, is that people keep saying that there's massive fraud, and yet nobody is producing the evidence. They keep saying, well, there's fraud, but we can't prove it. Well, you're saying that you can prove it.
Yeah, you can prove it. You can look at the machines.
Okay, but you're saying.
But they won't let you look at the machines. That's the problem. So, I mean, if you look at those machines on every single Dominion machine, there is a cellular modem on there. So they can program in whatever results that they're looking for. And if they won't let you look at those machines and they're protecting them, I mean, Dominion will not let you get into
Okay, so what happens to all the Republicans that were elected in this last election cycle? Because there were plenty of Republicans elected. Were their elections fraudulent as well, in your opinion?
Well, I think that there were probably some legitimate ones. There were probably some illegitimate ones. I don't know. I'm talking about my race. You're asking me about the election fraud that's going on in the country, and I can tell you that it exists.
Okay, I was just actually more speaking about what's going on in Nevada, but I think we've covered that pretty well. Tell me what your biggest issues are in this race.
Well, my biggest issues are tabletop issues. Americans are hurting really bad right now, and nobody's doing anything to correct it. So the inflation is off the charts. If you think that there's inflation now, give it 6 months. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be looking at Venezuela for hope. It's going to be that bad with inflation. We don't have any energy policy, so when we're paying $5 for a gallon of gasoline, you think that that's bad now? Just wait, because that combined with the inflation is going to put an even tighter squeeze on Americans, just not just northern Nevadans.
I wouldn't disagree with you about the fact that we have inflation. Obviously, we do. But for example, today as I was driving around, I noticed that gas prices had dropped about 25 cents in the last couple of days.
Yeah, how much is that? Because they released some of the reserves.
Do you really think that makes a difference, and that's not just a political stunt?
No, obviously it's a political stunt, and if it's going to make a difference, it's going to be a short-term difference. Now, I kind of like to trade stocks, so I am very familiar with monetary policy and taxation and all of that kind of stuff, and you look at all of the economics when you trade stocks. So I'm very familiar with that kind of stuff, so I'm happy to answer any of those questions for you.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Obviously, to win this race, or even to run a good race, you're going to have to raise a significant amount of money. Have you been able to raise money at this point?
No, I've self-funded, because I'm not going to go out and ask people for money when they're hurting as much as they are. Now, this race may be different, but in the previous time, yes, I
So how much money do you think you're going to have to invest in this to be competitive?
I don't think you have to invest as much as some people say that you do. There are some people say you can invest millions, but no, you get the word out. I think I did actually very well for being not a politician in the previous race. So no, I don't think that I'm going to give you some figure that it's going to be $7 million or something crazy like that.
Okay, but do you think that you can win a Republican primary?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. Sir, if you want to come up here and moderate, you're more than welcome to do it. But otherwise, please hold your voice until later, and then you can certainly talk to him. Thank you very much. So, how would you
Everybody be courteous and let the interviewer do his due diligence.
So, inflation is the number one topic.
No, it's not. There's a multitude of topics. We've got inflation.
I'm not
we've
saying, okay, but every politician I've talked to in the last 3 months has
Yes.
said that the number one thing that they're dealing with when they go out on the campaign trail is inflation.
Well, I go to the grocery store. I go to the gas station. Yeah, I understand inflation, but it's not just centered around that. We've got a lot of other issues that's going on that are created in D.C. And what we have here is a situation where we keep sending these attorneys that are in a corrupt system. You know, the judicial system in this country is corrupt. We know that. And then we send them into Washington, and they continue to carry on in those same ways. But we've got a situation where we've got the Green New Deal. Nobody wants to focus on that, how they want to force you out of your car. You think gas is $5 and it's too expensive? Well, wait until they put you in a $60,000 electric vehicle that you need to change the batteries after 45,000 miles at $30,000 to do that. Or how about this, that they want to, does anybody here know about the Brandon administration putting in an executive order for digital currency by October 5th? So nobody's talking about that. So
Well, apparently you are.
what I want to ask you people to do is go to the whitehouse.gov, look for that executive order, press Control and F on your computer, type in the word climate, see how many times that appears. This digital currency is going to stop you from driving in your vehicle. It's going to stop you from purchasing things that they don't want you to. It's control. Nobody's talking about these things. It's not a conspiracy. It's on the website.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I want to hear what you have to say. But you just said that judges are corrupt. Are all judges corrupt?
No, I think in a situation, no, not every judge is corrupt. Not every lawyer is corrupt. There's good in all
Okay,
walks
no,
of
well,
life. I mean, there's good pilots, there's bad pilots, okay? I'm not saying with a broad brush that I'm going to paint all judges are corrupt, but I think we do have a very, very extremely corrupt judicial system in this country.
What would be your best example of that?
Well, gee, I don't know. We've got a perfect example is Joe Brandon. He's an attorney. We've got Kamala Harris. She is an attorney. We've got Mark Amnesty, as I like to call him. He is an attorney. We got Danny Tarkanian. He is an attorney. And we've got a Supreme Court justice that can't tell the difference whether or not she is a woman or not.
Okay,
What the heck is that?
So all those people you just named are corrupt?
Oh, absolutely. Not everyone. No, I'm not saying everyone. I would say Brandon, I would say is corrupt. I say Kamala Harris is corrupt. Absolutely.
Okay, but you're not accusing
No,
Danny
I'm not.
Tarkanian
I'm
of
just
being
saying
corrupt or
that
Mark Hamill.
they operate in that system. And it's an adversarial environment that they operate in.
So if you're elected to Congress, are you able to work outside of the system to change things, or do you have to be part of the system to be able to change it?
No, I hope I'm not going to be part of the system that we have right now. That's why me as a private citizen going in, not as a career politician, thought that I could add something for this race.
Sometimes it's difficult if you are operating outside the mainstream. Jim Gibbons was a very popular governor with a lot of people, but he didn't work within the system, and you ended up with Brian Sandoval.
Okay, well, here's the situation, okay? I can operate complex aircraft in complicated airspace and then navigate at the same time. I don't think I'm going to have a hard time navigating the corridors of the swamp.
So you were talking about the Green New Deal earlier. It appears, because of the current energy prices and the inflation, that Democrats have realized that this is perhaps not the best time to be pushing this agenda. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree that they're going to do it anyway?
They're going to do it anyway. And you could see it just by the document I told you to reference on the whitehouse.gov. They're going to do it. I mean, this is all coming from the World Economic Forum. You can see where its roots are.
Let me ask you about the Ukrainian situation. How do you feel the United States is doing? Should we be doing more? Should we be doing less?
I think we should be doing less in terms of creating corrupt countries in Europe. I think that's something we should do. You know, and so 2014, it was the Obama administration that overthrew that administration that they had over there. You look at Victoria Nuland, she's been stirring things up over there long before even 2014, and she's still over there. So, for example, people say, oh, there was no labs, biosafety labs over there in the Ukraine, but then she testifies before Mark Rubio, before the Senate, that there, in fact, are labs over there, and she's afraid that the Russians are going to get over there and release the contents, but there's no labs. So I think being the only person that's running for CD2 who has actually been at war, maybe somebody could look at my experience and say, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about, because I've been in war and I've seen the results of it, and I don't think we need to be getting America into a war in this corrupt organization that we call Ukraine. I mean, why is it that it's so bad? We've got Pelosi, Romney, and Hunter, all these people that are making money over there and in this corrupt nation, and we should go over there and protect their monthly paycheck.
Okay, but when you look at the news video that's coming out of Ukraine, okay, you're smiling, so go ahead and respond.
Okay, give it a week. That's what I say. Whatever you find on the evening propaganda, give it a week and then tell me whether or not that's accurate.
Okay, so what is the news source or sources that you depend on for good information?
I don't get any news from the television.
Oh, or online?
Online, yes, primarily, because you have to go with something that's not mainstream. That's the only place where you're going to get the truth.
So what would
I'm
you say
tired of
your
the lie.
primary sources?
You know, I think the best place would be censored.news.
Censored.news. Okay, very good. Well, we are hitting the 15-minute mark. It was a pleasure to meet you, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Sam, you guys did a great job. Again, all these candidates have their literature on the table. So go talk to them afterwards. With that in mind, we're going to have a minute or two to set up for the debate. So the candidates for the U.S. Senate, Nevada, please come up to the podium, and Sam will be down here. By the way, Paul Jackson is doing the timing. He's doing a great job. He's with the Nevada GOP. Huh? You are? I stopped the book. I know. What's that? I don't have my glasses.
Wait until you hear the very end. Don't tell Ray, but when he complimented you, the mic was hot, so everyone heard him say how he did well, and that Mark pissed him off.
So let's talk to Sam real fast now.
That's for my wife.
Tell her thanks. I really screwed myself.
She said it was awesome.
What?
Sam, can I borrow your pen for just a minute? Your pen, may I borrow your pen?
Here, what do you need? Sherelle. She's wondering. She's here. Bill.
Oh, thanks. Man, I'm not used to eating food or these things. I'm like stuffed. So you got a meal on us?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't have to pay.
I didn't eat.
Well, you could have eaten. You
I
got
had
an
a
extra
salad.
meal.
That sounds-
I had a
Well, they
salad.
charge you if you have a salad.
They do?
They do. They charge you, Ray, if you have a salad. Ask them.
Well,
By the way,
I can eat the plate for
Go,
somebody that didn't
go,
show up.
go have them pull up food. Go have 'em-
Bill, don't worry about it. There was 15 that paid that didn't.
No, I'm
show
just
up.
saying though, you still can eat a meal.
Danny, now you got to kick in $500 here since I pissed Mark off. He gives us $500 at a time.
I'll tell you what, as soon as I win, I'm gonna give you $1,000 and
There you go.
I'm gonna double whatever you gave
Can
me.
you take a check?
Checks in the mail.
I'll double whatever you gave me.
Hey, can I do a sign-up sheet and pass it around?
Yes.
I didn't.
Tell everybody it's coming around.
Sign up for what?
Dean.
No, well, it's for Dean, but it's for my stuff, so I can share it with you also.
Yeah.
It's mine, so
We have a few minutes. Let me ask. Where's Chris? I don't like him. You're kidding.
Would I kid about something like that?
He likes you. And
All right, everybody have a seat. We're going to start in a minute or so. Everybody grab a seat. Hopefully you're done with your potty breaks. Joe? Leo? Sit down. Good stuff. I get grouchy. I live 2 doors down from her.
Okay, Mrs. Nevada. And Miss California, yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
You did a good job. You behaving yourself?
Wait for you to sit down. Ladies first. How's my hair?
You're actually great. You know I got your back.
It's not flying away. Will that camera catch my top of my head since I'm so tall?
Yeah, I checked it.
Okay.
It's all good. I checked. It goes all the way to the top of the
Okay, 'cause
flags.
I'm a little over 6 foot, so.
No, it goes top of the flags.
Okay,
You're good.
good.
Want to stand up real fast a little bit? This is the back.
You want to check it?
Everybody ready? Take your seats. Take your seats.
You guys can bring.
We're going to start the debate.
Nah. It's all on my head.
No, you're good. The more you do this, the better you get.
Can I have your attention? There's going to be a debate for Nevada U.S. Senate candidates. Paul, why don't you tell them the rules again for everybody?
Okay, each candidate will get 75 seconds to introduce themselves. They will get 1 minute to answer any questions. If there's a rebuttal, the moderator will allow 30 seconds for rebuttal. There will then be 75 seconds at the end for the candidates to give closing statements. I will throw up a yellow card when there's 15 seconds to go. We will not cut the candidates off mid-sentence or mid-idea, but we do hope that they respect the timing. Thank you.
With that in mind, we are live streaming all over the state and all over. And Bill, I am standing in the spotlight. Anyway, with that, Sam, take it away.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. Sherelle, we've never actually met, but it's nice to meet you here on the debate stage. So let's start out with your introductory remarks, and Sherelle, you go first.
Testing. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name is Sherelle Mendenhall. I'm running for United States Senate. I'm going to paint a picture for you. Growing up, I grew up on a farm. I knew what hard work was because when we got up, we had to feed our sheep before we even got to go to school. We mended fences. We built barns. One of my first jobs was bucking hay. I had 3 other sisters. I had no brothers. I learned to ride a tricycle and shoot a gun at the same time. Fast forward to right now. 4 years ago, my sister went missing. And we still don't know where she is. Human trafficking is a human issue, not a party issue. Safe communities, education, human issue, not a party issue. When did we lose the ability to have a conversation and care about our country, care about people, instead of just a DRNR? I am a strong conservative, but when we get in there, we need to have honor at the table and care about things again, so we can get things through that aren't Jackson, because Jackson is wrong for the Senate and she just got voted through, you guys. My name is Sherelle Mendenhall, and I'm gonna do my part to mend the nation.
Bill Hawkstedler, you're up next, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Hawkstedler. I am running for the United States Senate. I want to give a bit about my background just so you understand where I come from, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other questions that we can answer that will expand on how I feel about certain issues. So I grew up in Virginia, raised by conservative parents of the greater generation. My father was a World War II veteran. My brother was a Vietnam veteran. We're a military family. I joined the military during the Carter administration. I go way back. I was in the Army Reserve before I went to college, and after college I joined the Air Force active duty. I served in the Air Force Intelligence Command. I was also law enforcement at one point in my career early on. So I do believe in the blue, and I believe in justice, and I believe in our legal system. And I also wanted to say that I was also the DIA, or actually a liaison to the DIA from the Air Force. I was representative to the DIA for 2 years. So I understand a little bit about the machinations of what's going on around the world, everybody that's trying to tear America down. I understand national defense. I understand our NATO partners in regard to how we disseminate our information and all of that. I'm also the vice president of the Mayo Clinic out of Rochester, Minnesota, and the Strategic Alliance with Ambient Clinical, where we do sepsis detection, early detection of sepsis and treatment per the CMS guidelines and the SEP1 guidelines. So I have a lot of life experience, and I wanted to make sure I make a difference for the country. We'll be able to expand on other things later, but I just wanted to do a brief introduction. Thank you.
And Bill Conrad.
Hi, I'm Bill Conrad, the surprise candidate here. But I want to say something. It was after my second tour in Afghanistan, I came back and there was 94 days left until the race for assembly. And I filed for that race. And then about 2.5 weeks before the vote, I had got a call that during a debate, I was actually in a debate, so the last time I debated, I was at this debate, and I got a call the next morning say, hey, Conrad, guess what? We're going to bring you back onto active duty. And I found myself at Fort Leavenworth on election night. But we still voted. And I did real well. In California, the top 2 candidates get to the election, and I was in the top 2. So 94-day election, that's the bottom line. You're going to want to learn about me. So the best way to go find out about me right now is go to billconrad.us. And it looks sort of like this. I've got 5 points. And the first one is to drain the swamp. But I'm going to make sure I talk about these. I got 10 seconds left. Drain the swamp. My first vote will absolutely not be for Mitch McConnell. We need new Republican leadership, United States Senate. I want Sam to ask that question when he asked the other 2 candidates who didn't show up here tonight. I want him to ask that question next week. Okay, thank you. I'm Bill Conrad, billconrad.us.
Okay, so everybody's going to get to answer these questions, and I've gone to all of your websites, and so I'm picking stuff from your websites, and then everybody can respond to those. So we're going to start with you, Sherelle. Interestingly, I don't see too many other people talking about water issues, but obviously water is a huge issue for the state of Nevada, and you have things on your website concerning the Colorado River. Could you expand on that?
Absolutely. So when I took a look at everything, I'm a business person first and foremost. And so when I was looking at making sure that we bring manufacturing stateside, because obviously we can leverage that here for our state, people kept talking about desalinization. I was like, okay, this costs a lot of money and it still has to go through federal lands. Is this feasible? Is it reasonable? Are we going to use this as the best option? So I started delving into other options, and I took a look at what we can do with water that was just running off, being wasted from the Missouri or from the Columbia and feeding it to the mouth of the Colorado. So that way we don't have to worry about the desalinization plant we have to build over here in California, build through the federal land. Up here, it could take 7 years for us to build this out. So we need to get aggressively after it right now. And I don't know if you guys know this, but it's about 10 years we have until we're out of water in Clark County. So if I want to leverage it, bring businesses in, make sure that we can boost our economy, I need to make sure our water is good before I do that.
Do you mind if I do a quick follow-up with you? And maybe 30 seconds. How much money do you think it would cost? How many billions of dollars, literally, to be able to tap into that water you were suggesting?
So I'm still building that out. So I actually am researching and making sure that that's more feasible, because obviously the other is going to cost billions as well. I'm making sure that this is the most cost-effective and efficient. So I don't have that number yet for you.
Okay, and I will point out that Pat Mulroy, former head of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, has talked about tapping the water from the Midwest as well. Bill, your thoughts on water issues for Nevada?
Well, my thoughts on water issues in Nevada have to do with the fact of all, it's very hot and dry out here, so we don't have the ability to get the water that a lot of places in this country do. However, when the Colorado River project was formed and everything happened, the allocations of the water seemed to be the biggest problem for Nevada. Arizona and California seemed to get the lion's share of that. And that was before Vegas was built. Vegas was a very small town at that time. And we need to readdress the allocation of water that exists. I know there's opportunities to drill. I know there's opportunities to do desalinization. And we can certainly use technology to our benefit. But with the resources that we have, let's look at the allocation of water right now among the different states and find out how we can get more water allocated. Along with that, we need to also control growth until we're able to accommodate the people that come here for our industries. We have a growing industry besides just our entertainment industry, and we need to make sure that we can accommodate that growth responsibly.
Just a quick follow-up to you. So where would you limit growth, and by how much?
Well, I don't have any statistics that would be hard for this audience. I haven't researched that yet, but I will say that we do need to be responsible for the growth. A lot of growth is happening now without a water plan, without a growth plan, and all of those things need to be planned for accordingly so that we can actually have a responsible use of all of our resources, not just water. Look at the traffic in Vegas right now. It's becoming a lot like Los Angeles. So we need to curb the urban sprawl and make sure that we're doing everything responsibly.
And to Bill Conrad, water issues in Nevada, sir. And maybe you can address something in northern Nevada as well.
That's very good topic. It's something I dealt with as a city councilman. And the first job of government, local government, is planning and urban planning and making it happen. And we should not build unless we have the right, proper things. And I'll tell you what, the builders in northern Nevada, Jim DeMartini's here, they get away with murder. I was a builder in Central California before the war. And I was also city council vice mayor. And we had to work very closely with the builders and the farmers and ag to make it work. But here, it seems like the building is just popping up everywhere without planning. And that's for roads that are just as important as water. Now, water, my grandfather was a surveyor, worked on the California Water Project. I know it well from what we needed water. We had problems in Central Valley. Agriculture really had problems, especially in the South. It's got to be a regional planning issue. There is a lot of water up in Oregon and Washington that could eventually be piped and worked down here. And there's a lot of ways. There's efficiencies and systems that we can use in recovering water. There's all sorts of things we can do, but it all starts with good planning at the city level, and it works its way up and eventually gets to Senate.
So just a quick follow-up for you. We know that the Truckee River Operating Agreement, which I think a lot of people in this room will be familiar with, took 30 years to accomplish. And that was just the Truckee River coming out of Tahoe. How many decades do you think it would take to negotiate between the Pacific Northwest, Nevada, and the environmental movement?
Well, if we have tough governors, and some things you don't compromise about, too. If we had tough governors, they'd go out there and form organizations and work together. And if we could eliminate some of the environmental issues that stop us. I remember in 1994 in the Clean Water Act, I hustled to cut the top of a hill because if I didn't get this cut by a certain date in 94, the Clean Water Act was going to go into effect. And it was going to take me another 2 years to do that same cut. So, we got to reduce regulations. That's what Trump was doing. He was reducing regulations, and we were being successful as a country.
All right, so now we move to Bill Hawkstedler's website, and one of the topics that you bring up is obviously it's always a hot topic, has been for 40 years, which is longer actually, is immigration policies. What would you like to see accomplished if you were in the United States Senate? What would you like to push forward? Because this has been a dead issue. Even President Bush tried to get this accomplished.
Well, as far as immigration issues, we all know that we want legal immigration. Probably a majority of this room are immigrants in some way or another. If you go back into your ancestry and think about where you come from, what European or other nation did your ancestors come from before here. And so keeping that in mind, we always want immigration to be alive and well, but alive and well doesn't mean illegal. So we need to make sure that we're bringing people into the United States in a responsible, controlled manner that will be good for them and good for Americans here. And then they can get their citizenship eventually. So we need to make sure that we do it honestly and ethically and with morality in mind as well. We want to be humane to people that need to come here. We know that there are people that are trying to escape atrocities around the world, and we probably can accommodate some of those folks, but we can't necessarily condone illegal immigration, people come in across thousands at a time, so we need to make sure that that piece is taken care of. We have a lot of good laws in place right now to help with immigration. And if we could just follow the law and enforce the law, then I think that we'll be better off as a nation.
Just a quick follow-up. Why do you think we as a country has failed to do that in the last 40 years?
Well, immigration is one of those, again, like you said, a hot topic, and it's an emotional topic. You have people that want to come here to be with their families that came before them. You have all kinds of reasons that people want to come to America. And it's our good economy, but there's also the morality issues that somebody's grandmother or mother may be here, but they can't come here. I know instances of children that are in some Asian countries that can't be here with their parents right now because of some of the laws. So we need to figure out how to work all that out.
Bill Conrad, your thoughts?
Going back, immigration is important to this country, but it's got to be legal. And going back to 1999, I can even talk about the fence, because I worked on the first 60 miles of the fence along the border in San Diego as a National Guardsman in 1999. I'm a civil engineer also, did the helipads and the design work. I got to talk to the Border Patrol folks and all the issues they had back then, and people were still coming across, but we were returning them back then. We're turning them right away. They weren't staying overnight and they catch people, but they just keep on coming back. There's no punishment. So something's happened between 1999 and now, and it's ridiculous. And it's about the Democrats and about this president who's pathetic. The president's not in charge right now. You know that. He's not making the rules. Someone else is making the rules and allowing us to get flooded by a group of people from across the world from our southern border. And finally, I want to mention, in 2008, I started to work at getting, in 2008, there were only 68 visas out of Afghanistan back to the United States because it's highly controlled. You had to go to the State Department. On my fourth tour, fourth tour, I took my interpreter and started trying to get him out. It took me 3 years to get him out, and it was a lot of work. Everyone in Afghanistan wanted to come to the United States, and they're only letting a handful of people out. And finally, I see my time's up, but that was disgusting, the evacuation of Kabul International. And people, anyway.
All right, Sherelle?
I love this question because immigration, even though we're not a bordering state, this impacts us so much in so many different ways. You look at the fentanyl levels. The fentanyl levels are now the #1 killers here in the United States, and they're pouring in from our southern borders. Number 2, human trafficking, one of the highest per capita. So when we're talking about this, I do get the emotional piece. My family did immigrate over here as well. We all have these stories of family members and friends, but we actually have to start adhering to rules. We need to be tough at the borders. We need to shut them down and put people on notice. Because while our country is suffering, we're housing them at the Hilton in Arizona. That is the absolute truth. So what we need to do is actually take care of our country so we can be a good place for them to come again. Work visas, necessary, absolutely. But we need a strict check-in process, and we need to start adhering to that once again. Thank you.
Can I just get a quick response from Bill, and then I'll come to you? Is that all right? So, no, this is on just a slightly different take on this. All right, go ahead. You get 30 seconds. Go ahead.
You get 30 seconds rebuttal when you talk about something. So you talk about immigration. I want to add one last thing. There used to be something called the Visario program in Central California. Jim DeMartini can tell you about that. Anybody know what that is, Visario? We need to bring that back because we need people to come up here and work and then return. The problem with an open border that Democrats have right now, you can't have a welfare state and an open border because everyone wants to come here for the welfare. And
All right, so Bill, just a quick response here. You guys have all talked about the southern border, but the northern border is pretty porous as well, but no one suggests building a wall there. And also one of the largest places of illegal immigration is the ports of entry where people come here and overstay their visas. A quick response to those two topics.
Well, the topic of the other border, the northern border, is Canada has been one of our more trusted friends for many, many years, and I think that is being exploited in some ways. Like you said, there are some porous problems with the checkpoints, and we do need to do a better job of that. I know that our strict enforcement, they try as hard as they can to enforce the laws, but it's a humongous border, as you can well know. It's a couple of thousand miles for sure across, and through some pretty tough territory, a lot of ice and snow in that direction. And so it has its challenges. There are no real fences or any actual borders that you can just walk across a meadow and be in the United States. So that being said, I think there's other techniques that can be done by catching people in the border towns, the border cities in the United States, and maybe there's a way to find them in those areas. But yeah, that's a quick answer.
Okay, so Bill, northern border and ports of entry.
so in the northern border, we don't have a problem with Canada because Canada doesn't allow people to come into their country. If you try to go up into Canada, they're going to arrest you and they might put you in jail. And they're tough in Canada. I was just up there last year. You can't go up there, and that's a tight border. And then it just doesn't happen because Canada doesn't have the issue like Mexico, people coming in and just going north. It just doesn't have the same issue. So Canada's not really an issue. Now, the second issue, ports of entry. We used to go along the coast. I used to fly military aircraft. And there was a big problem, especially from Asia, with people actually not only ports of entry, but coming in at night off of the ships and the container ships. So there are other problems. We agree with that and staying their visas. Bottom line is the United States needs to get tough and enforce our laws that we have.
All right, and Sherelle?
I actually want to echo a lot of what Bill just said. But across the board, one of the things is we need to be strong and take a look in any area, because I was just having this conversation, in any area where we have any sort of election integrity issues, where you have integrity issues, where you have someone pouring in that is not supposed to be here, we need to identify the issue and get to the root of it. For too long, we do topical solutions for real issues. And the real issue is we need people documented in our country so that we can take care of ourselves and then take care of the next group. Thank you.
All right, going to Bill's website. One of the top issues is draining the swamp and to not vote for current GOP leader Mitch McConnell. You want to get into details on that because there's a lot of Democrats that would say that he's been holding up a lot of the things that they would like to get done.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Mitch McConnell needs to just leave. He's got conflicts with China. I mean, the China conflict alone is enough. But you know what's ironic is Adam Laxalt is endorsed by Trump, and I'm pretty sure he's endorsed by McConnell, too. I can't figure that out. Those guys hate each other. How can you be two masters like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So if you could ask both those guys the question, who are you going to support for leadership in the Senate when you get there? Whoever gets there. Even us, you could ask us, too.
All right, so you go ahead.
Well, there's about 10 conservatives. I want a conservative more than anything. We have to have one of those.
Who would be your top pick?
Rand Paul, I think. He's especially right now with the issues that we have. Because, he brought common sense to this plague that just hit us from the Democrats, locking us down for the Omicron and for the COVID issues. So I think Rand Paul would have been a great guy right now to have in leadership.
Okay, Sherelle, you get the next chance to whack Mitch McConnell.
There's a reason we're in this state. It's lack of leadership. So I kind of referenced it earlier today, and it's having different conversations, and like we were just saying, there's so many things that possibly could be being held up, but that's just under a guise. They're not doing anything good. When we did have the majority, we didn't do anything. And we just sit there and we debate back and forth versus coming with real solutions. And that's where things change, is we come with real solutions that are executable, have a timeline, and that benefit the people and not just their pocketbooks. So yes, he's gone. And I agree, Rand Paul's the only one I've actually publicly given any sort of accolades for, so.
And there's nobody else in the current leadership that you would support?
Not that I wouldn't support, but I'm going to go on record only right now supporting what he's been doing. So.
Okay, Bill?
Well, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do want to say that to answer the latter part of the question is Rand Paul is the person that I'm most familiar with. He was my mother's optometrist when we lived in Kentucky. And and I will also say that I was just out at my daughter's wedding on April 2nd. And I didn't know this, but one of my daughter's good friends is actually on his campaign staff or his office staff in the Bowling Green, Kentucky office. So didn't know that, so I'm going to be trying to make some contact with Rand Paul pretty quickly to get him to know a little bit more about me. But as far as leadership in the Senate and talking about Mitch McConnell, I'm going to take a little bit easier tone. The gentleman's been there for a long time, and that may be part of the problem. But I know that as a human being, he's probably trying very hard to do the best job he can. And I'm going to give him that. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the guy because he's been trying hard, and he might not be doing the things that we want or that we think is in the favor of our party. But I truly believe he's an honorable man. And I just will say that there has to be some leadership, that there's got to be some changes for sure. There's always changes will be good, and I think I've hit my time limit. But
You have, Bill Conrad wants to respond.
I'll make this real short. Mitch McConnell, and you all remember this, voted for the bloated budget. You know, $30 trillion in debt with inflation well over 10%. It's not 7, it's well over 10. It's going to continue, it's going to get worse. But Mitch McConnell said after that last bailout, I'm not going to vote for any more bills. Well, he just voted again for the continuing resolution a couple weeks ago. So he just lied to us. Mitch McConnell just lied. And we have to hold Republicans accountable.
All right, and we'll move on to, go ahead, Bill.
Lied is a pretty strong word, and I don't fault you for saying that, but we also have to keep in mind that circumstances change. There might have been something that's changed since what he said, and then his actions. So let's give him a little bit of leeway for the fact that circumstances change, and people are allowed to make a change. People are allowed to change their vote or their stance on things. So given that, I wouldn't go as strong as calling him a liar.
Sherelle, go ahead.
I want to stop having politicians and corruption being synonymous. So when you say something, you do something and you follow through. And if you are going to, in fact, change your mind along the way, there better be a freaking good reason, and you need to explain it to the people.
All right, and the next question comes to you, Sherelle. On your website, you talk about human trafficking. There are a lot of different organizations that have gotten involved in helping to publicize this, but what would you feel that the Senate and the Congress should be doing?
I think it starts with a strong border. I do. Second piece, we need to actually do education and task force. So when I've taken a look at this issue is very personal for me. And these bracelets that I wear on my wrist, one is joy and one is loved. There's an organization called Worth Fighting For. There are a lot of programs, and we actually need to start collaborating, because for too long, and even within the Republican Party, there are 50 groups in each county, and everybody has their own events. We need to start collaborating, because we have some groups over here that are really good at taking these individuals and getting them out of sex trade, but then we have a whole group over here that has homes that we can put them in. So we need to start collaborating across the board, because so many times people ask the question, what are you going to do at legislation? Let's start being leaders and bringing all these other nonprofits together and saying, hey, guess what? This is our goal. This is where we can go, and you can bring them together under that one roof and that one mission.
Bill Hawkstedler?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Okay, the question is human trafficking, and what should the United States Senate and the Congress be doing in aid of shutting this down if possible?
Great, thank you. Yes, human trafficking and the sex trade and all of those things do have a lot to do with drugs. They do have a lot to do with our border insecurities, but it's also the morality of the average American people and our consensus of what to do about it. One of the things that needs to be done is that once the drugs and all the other things are eradicated, take away the cash, take away the drugs, and then you can actually help curb the problem. So we need strong investigations into any instance of human trafficking so that we can detect and mitigate the effect that it has on our communities. I know that right here in Nevada with the types of industries, the entertainment industry and all the things that go on in Las Vegas and Reno and points in between, we have a problem with human trafficking just because of some of the laws that we have in the state that actually make it easy for people to come here and do those types of things. I've heard before, just in my own county, I've heard of people complaining about people being bussed through the county or trucked through the county where they actually think that there might be some human trafficking going on. The sheriff has been contacted on those things, and we just need to do a better job at detection.
Thank you. And now Bill Conrad.
Well, this all ties together. We talk about the border, the cartels. The cartels are getting rich between human trafficking and charging people to come in from the southern border, and that's all the Democrats. The Democrats are letting them do this stuff. And you know what? The Democrats also say defund the police. I can't believe this party, this Democrat Party, defund the police, trafficking because of the border, enhancing all the people coming through. And the latest thing the Democrats are running for is to allow children to have sex changes. What a party is that? I mean, think about the party. They're going to self-destruct. They are the root of these causes of evil right now.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I'm going to add to what he's talking about just as far as backing the blue in this, situation, because so often this conversation, everyone wants to put a hashtag up or say back the blue and do something trendy. We need tangible solutions because they are part of the plan in order to back and get rid of human trafficking. But what that means is we need tangible solutions, and one of them is right now they're not backfilling recs. So we're losing headcount every single time they're retiring.
All right, we will move on to our next topic, and this comes from Bill Hawkstedler's website. You say we need to return to fiscal policies that restore the government's balance sheet to solvency, and yet we've seen not only in Democratic administration, but the previous Republican administration, that debt has gone through the roof. What are your thoughts on how you solve this?
Well, part of that is part of my economic plan. One of our top issues is actually the economy. Second issue is a strong military dominance. And without the economy, you don't have a strong military dominance. But getting back to the root of the question, we need an actual smaller government. We need to streamline and be more efficient. And we need to take the regulations off of our people and our businesses in this country so that we can live freer. That's one of the primary things that we need to do as a nation. And if we can do those things, we can reduce the budget and the overload that we have. I'll take an example, the tax code. Look at the tax code. It must be stacked this tall, maybe taller. And my plan would be to reduce the tax code to a single sheet of paper, double-spaced, one-sided piece of paper, make it simple, equal taxation, fair taxation for all, take out the loopholes and the deductions so that you don't have to have 200,000 people actually trying to catch cheats. And it's a very simple tax code, and we can actually get more efficiency in our government.
All right, Bill Conrad.
So Ronald Reagan once said, government should only do those things we cannot best do ourselves. He also said that the federal government should be small and you move down into the states and the local government, because government closest to the people is best. If we ever want to get our debt under control, we need to return the power back to the states and the cities and substantially reduce the size of federal government. And that will help. And we can't keep on publishing fiat money. You just got to stop publishing money. We got to have a balanced budget every year. And that will help inflation. It will help our defense. It'll make us a stronger country. There's a lot of other things we can do. Reducing regulations, like you said, is important. Getting us energy inefficient. Using the petroleum products. We get wealth by selling oil around the world. And then we need to get back there.
Okay, Sherelle.
As a business owner, something that never happened for me is when I got to payroll, I never got to print money. So as we have this conversation, I think something that's really important is we need to learn how to balance a budget again, vertically integrate, and we actually need to start auditing each piece to see where we can save the money, because we're talking about the debt yet again. What are we tangibly doing in order to reduce this debt? Because I talk to, as I'm out there knocking doors, so many people who are worried about their Social Security. They're worried about the thing they work their whole entire life for, and yet they're still getting taxed on it. So we need to have different conversations. We need to audit every single funnel and silo and make sure that we're being responsible with our money again and pretend like we know what we're doing with money.
All right, now we move on to our next topic. Right to life is one of the topics on your sheet here, Bill, on your website. Be specific about what, it's you, Bill Conrad, sorry. Two Bills. What specifically would you like to see the Senate and the Congress do in terms of right to life?
Well, first of all, anybody that's known me, I've always been pro-life my entire life. And I think I've even become stronger pro-life in that at one time I would think that rape and incest, you could have an abortion. But as I evolved and got older and understand it, and especially with my son and family, just life is life. And we should protect life. Now, I got to tell you why to protect life, first of all. Even if you take religion out of it, if you devaluate life in the womb, you devaluate life outside the womb. We should protect our kids, and I believe every life in the womb is a human being. So what can we do? We can, first of all, defund Planned Parenthood. That should not get $1 of federal money. That's another disgusting Democrat organization. So that's the first thing to do. Second thing to do is elect Republicans who are pro-life. How about that? And third, so that we're up there so we can defund and reduce the monies. And then hopefully Roe versus Wade gets overturned on the Supreme Court and we can get another conservative justice up there.
Sherelle?
We've been soft on this issue for too long. We've tried to be inclusive, and as a party, be inclusive, and we keep letting every single inch we give, we're losing miles. Let's talk about AB 2223. Anybody hear about that? Happening in California? Infanticide. They want to allow babies to die and not be criminalized after they're born. That's the point we've gotten to, because we keep allowing abortion to get through under the guise of other things. Like you're raped, you're molested. Does anybody know that here in Nevada, as a kid, you don't have to get permission from your parents, no matter what age, to go get an abortion? What are we doing? We're asleep on the job. Life is life, and it needs to be protected, and we need to fight for it right now before we lose everything.
Bill Hockstedler?
Yes, and like Bill, I believe in light over darkness, and I believe in human life and the dignity of human life. And it does start at conception, in my opinion. So that being said, there was a time when I used to think that there might be exceptions through rape or incest or medical necessity of the mother. And I do have struggles with that, but I do believe that life over death and light over darkness is the way to go. The older I get, the more I feel like that. Now that I have grandchildren, and it just changes your perception on things. And I think as we get older, we get wiser, we understand the importance of life. And so that with that being said, I'm not squishy on the subject. That is my stance, and I'm pro-life.
Go ahead, Bill Conrad.
Hey, I'm going to use my last 30 seconds here. I still think there's a point where the life of the mother and the infant, and they're together, and it's the mother's decision because there's two lives there. And that's a hard, hard decision. If a mother's going to die, but I don't think that happens a lot in modern medicine. It shouldn't happen, and it should be extraordinarily rare, and it's not about abortion. It's something that happens, but it shouldn't happen today in modern medicine, but there may be a case. And secondly, I just want to say that last week there were 5 babies found. Actually, there were thousands or hundreds of babies found, but in the bottom of baby rescue. And they were partial birth in Washington, and the police, they reported as murders. And the police finally investigated.
I have to wrap you up there. Thank you, Bill. Did you want to rebut there as well? Okay, Sherelle. School choice is one of the issues on your website, and I just want to point out that this is normally dealt with on a local level, Washoe County School District, Clark County School District. We have a State Department of Education. What do you think the federal government's responsibility should be regarding school choice?
I put that on there as a leadership piece. So again, one thing that I want to continuously talk about is leadership and the lack thereof. So often people say it's not their job when you're in this position. It's not your job, but you can actually elevate the conversation, especially when you bring it to the federal level. For me personally, I was, for a section of time, I was homeschooled because they tested me out. I was in a really rural school, and they tested me out because I would finish my work and then I would flit around and tell everybody else the answer. So they're like, she's not challenged. And so I also believe that we need to make sure that we're elevating trade schools in schools. We're giving people options as far as homeschooling. We have a different conversation. So I want to use this position as a leadership conversation and not just say, hey, because I'm a business owner, I'm not going to go clean the toilets. I'm not going to pay attention to every single like small detail. We need to pay attention to everything and have the conversation at the leadership level.
Bill Hawkstedler, is it Congress's responsibility for school choice?
I don't believe it is. It is more of a local issue, as you pointed out. That being said, I have listened to people at local issues, at different debates and forums where we get to hear the conversation. And I do believe that it is a choice that we should be allowed to make as parents and be able to determine where our children are educated. It's more at the state and local level. It really isn't anything to do with the federal. My children are way beyond school age, and so I don't personally get involved in that. My grandchildren are back east. But I will say that I think it is a local level, and it should be dealt with there.
Bill Conrad?
So what we need to do is the Department of Education needs to go away at the federal level and return it back to states. I mean, I believe enough Republicans, if they understand why you do that, would understand why you do that. Because if you take money out of the states and you sit into the federal government, and then the schools, the federal government says, well, you have to do these things to comply with whatever, like President Bush. Remember, President Bush had some program. But that, you lose money. At every step that you move money around, you lose it too. So you keep money local, and you keep it with the parents as much as possible. So I'd be even school vouchers locally, but that's not the federal issue. It's a state issue, it's a local issue, and it's a parents issue more than anything.
All right, let's move on to another topic here. Bill Hawkstedler, you talk about environmental policies that provide worldwide leadership towards concrete solutions. Can you give us a specific example?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the policies, environmental issues and things of that nature, we have to understand that science does have its place. I know a lot of people don't necessarily believe in certain sciences when it comes to our environment, but you have to understand that as we improve our environment, we remove our technological barriers that prevent us from moving forward as a country and as a world. There are a lot of things that we can do to advance. And that's where I think that strong leadership and our innovation technologies actually stand a chance to improve the world that we live in while keeping our economy strong. We can have good economic jobs in those industries, and I think it does help us with our, let's think about energy independence. We actually have the ability to have multiple sources of energy besides relying on just the petroleum industry. The petroleum industry has way too much leverage with our politicians right now and the money that they give to them. And so we need to make sure that we handicap that ability to affect our politicians and also improve our world.
Bill Conrad?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, environmental policies that provide worldwide leadership towards concrete solutions. Can you give an example of one?
Boy, that sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare. So, world government environments, I mean, China, I've been around the world, and pollution is 10 times worse. And they burn andal in Asia, and it's just thick. Coal. We can't put ourselves behind. We can't be the Green New Deal. I mean, you got to take it to the United States. We have to be energy efficient. We do lead the way in clean energy around the world in a lot of ways, except what's happening in Europe. And the European Union is sucking right now because the Russians actually had propaganda to actually get them to go green. They funded a lot of projects in Central America, in Europe, to get them to try to go hyper green. And right now they're paying 5 or 6 times what we're paying for natural gas. But we're going in the right direction in the United States. I'd say keep it basic, go slow, and you'll get out of it. No one knows for sure what the real impacts are on global warming or cooling. It changes, it goes through cycles. No one can tell you for certain that we're going into some kind of age of overheating and dying, because they've been saying that on and off forever. So thank you, and I see my time's up.
Okay, Sherelle?
I think this is a good conversation, and I think sometimes too often we go back and forth, and it's just like saying that the Democrats care about the environment, and then we don't. So having a different conversation, I think, is really important. and energy independence. I think I want to talk about being proactive versus reactive. So right now, what I hear a lot of times is just a debate back and forth when we're talking about our environment versus, hey, let's take a look at the long-term effects of whether we're mining lithium, when we're talking about petroleum, when we're talking about energy and electric cars and what that looks like for our future, what kind of EMP protection we have. There are so many conversations yet to be had. And we're trying to move forward without building things out strategically. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm against this, it's okay, let's take a look at our future. Let's take a look at the solutions. How much time do we have? And as someone mentioned it earlier about maybe we have 30 years in order to build out this infrastructure. We need to make sure that we're building out in advance instead of being reactive. Let's for once be proactive.
Bill, go ahead.
Take advantage of this 30 seconds here. They're pushing us into electric cars, electric everything. Electricity is inherently inefficient. It's going to take some time really to develop these systems. But do you realize that we still produce a lot of electricity in the United States by coal? I've heard upwards that 40% of our electricity is produced by coal. So when you have your Tesla out there driving around, it's 40% operating on coal.
Bill Hawkstedler?
Yeah, just a quick rebuttal on that everybody needs to understand that we have an enormous amount of energy that comes from our sun. And I'm not saying put solar panels everywhere, but the amount of energy that we get from the sun in 1 second gives us enough energy to run this entire country if we were able to capture 100% of that 1 second. So think about that. That's a large potential. So we do know that electricity is efficient. We do know that electricity is clean, and we do know it's a viable alternative, or at least an adjunct to what we're doing currently.
Sherelle?
Talking about electricity, again, I want to hammer this home. EMPs. It is so important, whether the Navy has a few and Washington has some for protection, but what about the rest of the people? When we become reliant on it, being proactive, what happens if we get hit with a different type of attack? We're not protected. We need to make sure that if we are moving in this direction, we are protected. Thank you.
All right. I want to take this moment to thank all three of our debaters for a discussion where at times you got to disagree, but you disagreed agreeably, and that's refreshing and enjoyable. So now we go ahead if you want to applaud, that's great. So now everybody gets 90 seconds to sum up here. So Bill, would you go ahead and start?
I want to thank everyone who participated in this. We work really hard, educational, Red Move, which I'm a little part of, and my wife. I want to thank her for helping out here, Karen, in the back, putting up with me running for office. But there's a lot of things I want to talk about. Really didn't get to talk about all those tonight. But the defense of the nation is my most important concern right now. I think we were close to nuclear war here at any time, the way we're going right now with this president who we don't really know who's in charge. And I have 3 kids in the military. 2 of my daughters are at West Point. One's about to graduate in a couple months. May 22nd, she'll be a second lieutenant. My son's in the Coast Guard. I want to talk about that too as I finish, because it's something I took very close. My son is a lieutenant commander in the Coast Guard, flies C-130s, and he's a pretty high-level test pilot up in Kodiak, Alaska. And he's been treated like absolute crap by the Biden administration and by the leadership. He didn't take the shots. There's 21,000 service members requesting religious accommodations right now. And they're all being taken out of the military, basically. The Biden administration is trying to purge the military of pro-life Christians and Catholics, Protestants of any denomination, who are opposed on religious grounds of taking the vaccine. And we're losing a lot of skill, a lot of talent, and you can see what Biden's doing and how they are purging the military. The first thing they did when they went in, when Austin came in, he said, I want to go and throw all the extremists out of the military. Well, what he's doing, he's throwing all the pro-life Catholics, Protestants, and others out of the military. This has got to stop now. You got to tell your congressmen and your senators, and tomorrow, I went to Amadei's office, and he didn't do anything. He didn't come back on anything. I gave him some of the information. So anyway, I know. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. The other candidates should have been here tonight.
Sherelle, please go ahead.
I'm going to start by banning biological men from competing in women's sports. The next thing I'm going to do, instead of saying I'm signing a paper and posting it on Twitter, I'm going to put into legislation term limits. It's really important that we're accountable again, that we actually have conversations and we serve communities versus own self-interest. And by the way, a senator makes about $160,000. How are they having 5 homes worth $5 million? Let's have that conversation. You guys, I didn't want to get into politics, but I took a look at what was happening. And I said, these people don't represent my party. These people are soft. They're not strong. They don't care for my country. And guess what? They're mocking my God right now. I stand for the flag. I stand for family. I stand for freedom. And one mission on this entire journey is to inspire the next generation to want to be in politics, to want to be leaders, that it is honorable to serve your community, and that we do not need to eviscerate one another. But we need to start picking individuals that are going to best represent our values in any seat that they're fighting for. Thank you.
Bill Hawkstedler, here's your winding up speech.
Thank you. So I agree with all of my colleagues up here, my opponents. These are good and honorable people. And that's one of the things I want to speak to, is that we need to make sure that we bring honesty and integrity back to Washington, D.C. We need people that can actually solve more problems than they create. And that's a very, very important thing to me. So when I decided to run on the fact that we need more civility and decorum in Washington, D.C. in everything that we do. And for people in Nevada, I will be a relentless advocate for everybody in Nevada and be a representative for all of you, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or nothing at all, regardless of any of our differences, our religions, our orientations, or anything else that makes us different. We're all Nevadans, and Nevadans count. We have to make sure that we have proper representation for everybody in Nevada. That being said, I will be a leader in Washington among my peers. Because of my upbringing, my life experience, I consider myself to be the candidate that could be the elder statesman for Nevada. And I'm going to bring Nevada on the map. People are going to know that the senator from Nevada stands for something and takes action. I'm not going to be a backseat, third row senator that gets very little done or only scrambles when there's an election coming up. So I want to make sure that you know that there'll be a senator that you can be proud of in Washington, D.C., that acts the part, looks the part, sounds the part, and is the part. So with that being said, thank you for this time, and good night.
Thank you all very much, Sherelle, Bill, and also Danny and Joel for all coming out tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next round next month.
I want to thank everybody for coming. These 3 candidates did a great job, didn't they? Give them a round of applause. And 2 of them came up from all the way from Las Vegas. Again, just as a reminder, go see them. There's literature at each of these side tables. Talk to the candidates. We have the room till 10 o'clock. I'll be asleep by then, but anyway, the next meeting, which will be also debates, here at the Atlantis, again, May 5th, and it'll be all 5 candidates from Assembly 26, which is Lisa Krasner's old seat. And there'll be a couple of other surprise candidates, I guarantee you, plus the local candidates. Sam will do the, if he agrees, the moderator. Paul does. I wanted to thank Paul. It's hard keeping the timing.
Hey, Ray, the candidates had a couple questions of Sam and you. The candidates had some questions of you guys. What was the question?
Well, I just wanted to ask if there was a way that we could be considered for future debates. I know there's a debate that's being held coming up pretty soon, I think, with the Nevada Truckers Association. And it's my understanding that if you're not polling at a certain percentage or somehow you're thought to be a second-rate candidate and not in the first rate, that we can't debate that. Sam Shad may know the answer to that.
I think it's 5%.
Secondly, I want to just know, why weren't the other 2 candidates here tonight for this debate? Because their consultants told them not to be here? What does that say? I mean, from the live audience, a lot of work goes into this.
The other two candidates were invited. Sam Brown would have been here, but he wanted to debate against Adam, and Adam didn't want to. However, the two of them will be on Sam's show. May? May 9th. Oh, I thought it was April.
So, Sam, I watched Sam's video of Sam Brown, and he said, well, I might be there on the 7th. And he said, well, I'm going to do you guys on the 9th. Go watch that video. Sam, you undermined us.
But it's May? It's May. Oh, it's May 11th. I thought it was April. Or May 9th. And that'll be a debate between Sam Brown and Adam Laxalt. At Nevada
So why can't you do 3 more people?
At Nevada Newsmakers.
Why can't you do 3 more people?
But I think the rule is they don't do debates unless...
She's pulling on... She's driving... What's your numbers? 10%?
Yeah, I went from 9 to 19%, so I would be eligible if we're still looking, because if I knew...
I think it's 5%. And
yeah, which I'm above.
yeah. I don't know.
Sam, you undermined us. You undermined this debate
Anyway,
program.
go see the candidates, talk to them. And the biggest thing is, it didn't get brought up, we've got to stop the BS of fighting internally. Republicans have a tendency to each other, and the prime job, not resolutions or all that, is to get good constitutional candidates elected, period. See you next month.